there.
3 pages?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Stacy will do it.
Oh, I only have 3 pages.
Here's a new one for you, Mr. Bugby.
Oh, I thank you.
The
I would
camera
hate
is recording now.
to have you miss out on a page.
Oh, I'm missing just the
Thank
first
you.
page. That's on top. All right.
If you're just
Do we
missing the
not
first
have
page,
enough?
can we give
Yeah,
that to
you
Pat?
can do
Yep.
this,
We'll just
yeah.
check.
Yep,
Yeah,
there you
no
go.
problem.
No,
Oh,
there you go.
you got another one?
Yeah, I'm just missing the first page.
Oh.
Somebody's been having fun with fonts.
Is it Tom or is it the,
I don't know.
it is assistant?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Jess.
Hi, Eric.
Hello.
I'm happy to share this with you if you'd like.
Okay.
And I think with that, we can call the ABC meeting to order. We have a quorum. Thanks for joining us here today, Chief. Please feel free to go ahead and begin.
Okay, this is gonna be quick and easy. I don't have any requests for increases to the budget other than the increase to the holiday line item for the Indigenous Peoples holiday that was added. And a new line item, we're in the process of becoming nationally accredited again. So just a line item of $5,000 for any expenses that may come up in going through that process. So total increase of $7,401, which is just about 1%.
Just around education, nationally accredited, like accredited versus non-accredited, like what does that mean exactly?
So we were nationally accredited. We became nationally accredited in 2006 for the first time. And basically what accreditation does is it says that you have a set of policies. CALEA, the Commission on Law Enforcement Accreditation, they set standards. So basically what they do is they say, if you say you're gonna do this, you need to show it this way. So basically it says, I say we're gonna do it, and I can prove that we do it that way. So, you know, you design your policies, and then the CALEA will say, okay, well, if you have a policy for pursuits, then you need to show this, this, and this, if you have a pursuit.
Right.
Basically, that's what it is. You're holding yourself accountable. And you get a little bit of a break on the insurance through Primex. It used to be more when we were with NHMA. If somebody, you know, wants to, because a lot of people are, first thing they want to do is sue law enforcement when they have an interaction with them. Attorneys find out you're nationally accredited, they're kind of like, well, you know, you might be wasting your money here because they're doing what they say they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
So I was the accreditation manager. When I became chief, I couldn't do both jobs. And I didn't have anybody who wanted it because it's very cumbersome. And if you don't want to put somebody who doesn't want to do it in charge of it because it's disastrous. So we went away from it. We still did business the same way. We just didn't have the moniker of being accredited.
Sure.
Our policies never changed or anything like that. So we've decided to go back to accreditation again. I hired a gentleman, Greg Murphy. He was the accreditation manager for the City of Manchester Police Department for over a decade. Had him review all of our policies because a lot of the standards for CALEA have changed. So he just finished rewriting all of our policies so that they meet the CALEA standards. Now the process will be us taking 1.1.1, and it says that if you have a use of force policy, you need this form, you need to show this. So then I go back through our files, and any use of force we've had, I just pull the document out, say, okay, here's our proof that we're doing it. And now, back then, everything was a paper file. I had to print everything, highlight everything. Now we have a new program called Power DMS, where I can just download everything in, and everything's on one site. So the assessors, who used to have to come here, physically look through everything, I can just send them everything. They review it, and then they come in and do it on-site. I've already had members of our local CALEA group come in, inspect our facility. Good to go on that, all of our equipment, signage. So it's just a matter now of pulling proofs. I'm hoping by summer we'll be accredited again.
Is that an annual accreditation fee? Or is this just like a one-time fee?
This is a one-time, so when you become accredited, once the assessor says, yeah, you made the grade, then you have to go to a conference. And you have to go in front of a council. And they'll look at the report and they'll ask you questions. Like the first time we went, we had a lot of arrests, but very little use of force. Well, that was their big thing, like, how can you have this many arrests, but so little use of force incidents? And so I just explained, well, we talk to people, we treat them.
Sounds like a good thing to me.
It is a
Yeah,
good thing,
yeah.
but it's unusual. So I just explained how we do business.
Yeah,
So you just answer their questions, and then there's a banquet, you accept the award, and
okay.
so there are costs associated with that. The upfront fees and everything, buying the Power DMS program, I was able to encumber funds from last year's budget to cover all that, so that's already paid for.
Okay.
So do we do it yearly, or is it?
Yeah, so the way they do it now, it used to be every 3 years you would have to be reaccredited. So now what they do, because what was happening was a lot of people would wait till 2 years, 9 months, and then start filling their files and get ready for the onsite. So now they do a third year 1, a third year 2, and a third year 3, and then you reaccredit. There are 180 standards that we have to comply with.
Two questions, vehicles and where you stand with staffing.
So what's your question on vehicles?
Are we buying one this year?
No.
No.
So the last four vehicles, 3.5 of those vehicles was paid for out of the special duty line item.
Yeah.
We only paid for half of one out of the budget. Actually, we just took delivery of it today, the new Durango. It's all outfitted, ready to go on the road. That was bought for out of special duty line item.
Okay.
So we're good on cruisers. Just replaced all of our body cameras and cruiser cameras. That was $84,000, around $60,000 was grant money that we got. The rest was paid for out of money I encumbered from last year.
Mhm.
All of our portables need to be replaced. We got a grant from Chris Pappas's office for $56,000 to replace all of the portables.
Wow, nice.
We've got new pistols that we're upgrading our pistols so that everybody in our area is changing to a different caliber. And so you want to try to stay in tune with everybody you're working with, because you may have to swap ammunition or whatever at a steam. That's playing on a special duty line item. We're replacing our MDTs, mobile data terminals, the computers in our cars. Right now, we use Panasonic Toughbooks. We've been using those for 15, 16 years, and they're antiquated, and they take up a lot of room in the car. Now everything is a tablet with a keyboard.
Yep.
The printer that is now on the headrest is actually under the keyboard. So we were just awarded the almost $28,000 grant.
Who writes your grants?
Jess and I both do them. So we just got a $28,000. So far this year, we've received just a little over $100,000 in grant money to replace
That's
equipment.
awesome. Where's this special duty line item that you're referring to, Chief?
It's a separate, it's when we do our details,
Okay,
the money that we make from doing the details, what
okay.
we charge for the cruisers, it goes into a separate revolving account,
okay.
so.
So
it
not
just
out of the
keeps
municipal,
growing.
it's
Nope.
like funds that you're earning by
Yeah.
doing outside work, okay.
I can send the committee the sub-account totals if you'd like to see them. There's
Okay,
a bunch of them.
Okay, yeah, that'd be interesting to see. And in terms of staffing, I know that there's really not a whole lot of impact overall to the budget, but I did notice some variation in a few different line items. So like, you're not requesting anything for senior patrol wages this time around. So could you just talk briefly about like some of the fluctuations?
Yeah,
in
and that
these
was
line
all
items?
based off of promotions.
Okay,
So I had a senior patrolman who was promoted to corporal, so I no longer have any senior patrolmen.
okay,
So it didn't increase, it just moved money around
yep, okay,
to reflect what we have for current staffing. But we are currently down, well, by the end of December, we'll be down 3.
To what?
Down to 5 with 1 in the academy. So, in all of January and February, we've got 1 officer who'll be out for both months for paternity. So there'll be 4 of us, covering 24/7. So it's gonna be a long winter. It is what it is, it's just, I've offered 4 jobs, and 3 of them failed the background. There's just nobody to hire. There are no good candidates out there. So the one good one we did, whose background was stellar, he starts the academy in January. He'll graduate the end of April, beginning of May. Then it's a 12-week field training program with one of our senior officers. So realistically, by the time he's on his own, functioning in contributing, it's gonna be close to August.
What are these people failing the background checks for?
It's pretty frightening things, to be honest with you.
Wow, interesting.
You know, I had one who, his background was going well until we called somebody that he was interning for and found out that he was actually in the hiring process. At the same time, after we offered him a job. So he lied on his application because he never put that on. One of our questions is, have you applied for any other jobs anywhere else? And he failed to put this department on. And he was in the process with them and knew that when he took our conditional offer. So that,
He took the conditional.
oh yeah, no, he signed it.
Uh,
Yep. So that was it for him. A lot of it is honesty things, you know, things in the background that they're not telling us that are coming out in polygraphs. And, you know, we have a background investigator who's a former police chief, does a very thorough background. And he digs things up, which is what we want, so.
so with the new recruit that's in the academy, are we still down 3, or is he gonna bring us down to
We'll be
only
down
2?
to 2.
Okay,
We're down to, technically, we're down 3. I eliminated 1 position to utilize the funds to bring pays up, so we didn't lose more people.
Yeah.
Because we're actually on the brink of losing almost the whole department at one point. Departments are poaching bad.
There are 2 neighboring towns in particular that seem to have very deep pockets, and they want firemen and policemen. Just throw
and who
money.
are those towns?
It's hard to, you know.
Go
hard to
ahead and name
keep up.
names, Andy.
I thought at one point you said that they didn't poach, the departments in, is that a?
We never did.
I thought that
Well,
was,
yeah,
because
it
I
was
know
it was one of
other
those
years
things, you just didn't touch anybody else's people, but now there's nobody to hire.
you- Yeah.
So now it's a free-for-all. There's a department in the northwestern part of the state, they have a $30,000 sign-on bonus. $30,000.
There are a lot of $10,000 sign-on bonuses in the immediate area here.
And they did that specifically to poach full-time officers away from other departments. Because they sat down and looked to see what it costs from the time you hire somebody, outfit them, train them, and they're actually working. And they're like, okay, well then let's take that money and let's start stealing some full-time people from other departments.
Right, so like, just, again, curiosity, so how much does it cost roughly to like send some to the police academy and like, you know, build them up?
So it's all salary.
So you're just paying them their salary?
You pay them their salary while they're in the academy, you have to buy their equipment, which the equipment is expensive, and it's rare that you hire somebody that's the same size as somebody who left.
Yeah.
You know, like I just had to order a vest for Ricardo, $1,400 for a bulletproof vest. Everything is just so expensive now. You know, a pair of uniform pants is almost $100. You know, uniform shirt, boots, you name it. You know, they have to have so many t-shirts, sweatshirts, and sweatpants and shorts to go to the academy.
Right, well then how long are they at the academy for? So like how
16
much-
weeks.
Okay, so yeah, it's a chunk of salary.
Yeah, so there's 16 weeks at the academy, then they come back and there's 12 more weeks of field training,
Yeah.
if they're sharp. 12 weeks is the minimum, sometimes they can go out to 16. So,
So then if you poach someone for $10,000, how quickly can you get them up to full speed then?
usually 4 weeks, it's just learning the roads then, in, in our policies. But the problem, what you gotta be careful with, and my concern is if I say, okay, if you come work for us, and the town says, we'll give you $10,000 to come work for us, what does that say to our people who are staying with us? What am I worth? If you're gonna give him or her a $10 to come here, well, how much are you gonna give me to stay? Because they'll give you 10 to go over there. So it's a slippery slope, and it's very careful, you have to be very careful. But, we have a great benefits package here, and that's what retains a lot of the people that we have, is the benefits package.
Is there like one benefit in particular that,
The health insurance.
yeah, that's
The
the
health,
one?
you ask any of my people, they'll tell you, Brian, Libby, they just had a baby boy. The health insurance is important. They're gonna have some challenges with their son, unfortunately, so health insurance is very important to them.
Yeah, okay, that's good to know. Any other questions?
Did you get rid of the other, the replacement, the Durango?
So I've
Still-
actually decreased our fleet as well.
Okay.
So I gave one car to the code enforcement because their Explorer wasn't
Oh,
worth
you-
fixing.
That one over there.
And then the other one went to the highway department,
Oh, no kidding.
so. we switched
The
it to
one that
research.
you used to drive, did the Durango replace that? or
No,
that was
that's going into patrol.
That's going to patrol?
Yeah. Yeah, typically the new cars go into patrol. So whoever's driving the oldest car, they'll get the
That'll
next new car.
go, yeah.
Yeah. It's not based off of seniority or how good you work, it's if your car needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
All right. Eric, any questions?
There's a small one, the landlines and the cell phones lines, both of those, the budget and the current year budget and the one you're asking for hasn't changed. So is it that the numbers were appropriately padded to cover everything, or did the cost of landlines and cell phones really not increase at all?
We didn't see an increase in it.
Okay.
All right, any other questions?
No, all set.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Two.
Yep, that was next on the agenda, Andy, and then are you gonna be out of here?
I will leave you to the budget.
Okay.
I would just remind everyone that the meeting is still being recorded, and the technician will shut it off when you leave, but just if you don't see me in the back room, it doesn't mean that you're not being
Okay.
audio and visually recorded and broadcast.
Thank you for the disclaimer, we appreciate it. Okay, so, next order of business,
Somebody has to do minutes though, right?
Can she take it off?
We can still take it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so approval of some prior meeting minutes. We're gonna do this one by one, and Denise shared these with us a few weeks ago before Thanksgiving, and so September 21st meeting minutes, I motion to approve them.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passed, wonderful.
Can I get you to sign that?
Yes, I will.
Too?
I don't have a pen handy. Thank you very much. Okay, September 28th meeting minutes, I motion to approve them.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And meeting minutes from October 5th, I motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. We have approved the minutes, and I'm signing now for anyone that's listening.
This will save me a verbal barrage to use tomorrow morning.
You'll be all set finally.
Every week I'd come back and just I can't make
Sorry,
them approve the minutes.
question before you go. So are we moving into the, like, just ABC portion of the
Yes.
meeting?
Yeah.
Not the select board? So aren't we supposed to not be recorded for that?
You are a public posted meeting still, so typically you would be.
I thought there were
You have
some
it in
more
your
meetings that
spouse.
were not.
Possible, but
From time to time, the equipment has failed, but otherwise,
Okay,
we've recorded them.
all right.
thanks, Mr. Andy.
Thanks, Deb.
Yeah. Yeah, we always appreciate the minutes that Denise does.
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't have a particular agenda for this portion of the meeting. I was hoping to just kind of open up the floor to everyone to hear what some of your concerns might be or initial thoughts about the budgets that have been proposed. If there's anything of particular interest or concern that we need to focus on, either in this meeting or in some of our upcoming meetings, because I know we still have
Only
another
don't
one. So we have December 7th,
we? And then the presentation.
And then the
to select board is
presentation.
the 11th.
yes.
Yep.
Yes, you're right about that. Wait, hold on.
We go through each department?
Is it the 11th
Yep.
Yeah.
for the, I thought that was ABC only for
No,
December
that's
12th.
present to the select board.
Presentation to select board.
Sorry. Okay, yeah, you're right. Okay. So we have this meeting and December 7th as our next meeting. And so anything that's concerning or top of mind for anyone that we need to focus in on?
Just for my own sort of education with all this, I mean, you know, we kind of mentioned at the very start of this process, like, if we don't know the revenue, like, if we don't know, like, what the pot size of the pot is, how are we supposed to divide up the pot? Because, I mean, we could very easily just say, oh, yeah, your budget sounds great, like, here you go. And if we're not really, you know, if it's the, like, the select board that really, like, you know, trims everything down, like, I'm having a hard time understanding what we do exactly.
Just for your edification, you probably got your tax bill already, right?
Yes.
And you're still alive.
Yes, yeah.
So the tax rate went up about almost 9%. So revenue is not going to change that much. So you're going to see, in terms of if everything was the same on the expense side, you're going to get hit with another expensive bill next year as well. So yeah, you're going to get some valuation increases in terms of new houses and stuff like that.
Right, okay, so that's, I guess that kind of answers my, so, I mean, I guess other entities like the select board, they sort of adjust the tax rates to fit what
Well,
we want to spend.
Basically what happens, like, 2 weeks ago, I think it's 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we set the tax rate. So basically, there's a whole bunch of forms that we have to fill out, the state looks at it and says, okay, you need to raise X million dollars. You have this much valuation, which means, you know, your tax rate is going to be this, this, and this. And there's 4 entities. There's the town portion of it, there's the county, there's the state, and there's the school. So in terms of the increase in the particular year is $1.93, and about half of it was the town, half of it was the school.
Yeah.
County went up a little bit, state education tax went up a little bit, but it was basically the town and the school. So that's what's pushing your tax bill. So,
The school can't really do a whole
well,
lot about it.
you have no control of the school.
No.
The school board
Control
has.
the county. We don't control the state.
Yeah.
The only part we have any control over is the town, which is usually about 12% of the total rate, 10 to 12%. So-
Right, well, that's what I'm trying to understand, like.
But we don't
what-
budget revenue, Dave. We don't do anything with revenue. We just look at
You-
expenses.
You can look at it. I'm fighting that fight. So you should have those revenue numbers. We haven't gotten any since June something or other of 2023. So that's one of the things I'm working with Andy, so we can get those numbers, so you can give an idea. The other thing that you don't get is how much we've spent so far in this fiscal year. So I'm working to see if we can get those particular numbers. We've already had conversations, so.
Well, there's a current year actual on the report he just gave us, is that not accurate?
Yep, you can
Well,
do
so
that.
then
I didn't have this before.
Just to like a
Yeah.
hypothetical sort of walkthrough, right? So somebody comes in and presents a budget that goes up by, thousands of dollars.
Like
And
the
we
fire
say,
department.
right, like the fire department. And most of it sounds fairly reasonable.
Yep.
So, like, when we say, yes, it sounds reasonable, we think your budget proposal is good. So how does the town deal with that, with the increase? Because, in my mind, it seems like at this level, we would be the ones that would try to regulate that down, but if we don't, then.
Then
I'm
it's a
just
tax
saying-
increase in your tax bill.
Okay.
You're a
Yeah.
doctor, right? You should take care of
I know, I was
that.
like, have you examined yourself today to make sure? Okay.
You should have somebody look at that, Dave.
I was just wondering, sitting here.
3 of every swab that's.
Okay.
Okay, good.
But yeah, anything that revenue doesn't cover is covered by a tax increase, so.
So is that automatic, or is there a process where like, we could say, yes, fire department, you deserve $50,000 more, and the select board could step in and say, no, we're only gonna.
That's exactly
budget
what
That's
happens.
exactly what
Okay.
Exactly what
happens,
happens.
yes.
So just remember, this group is advisory.
Yes.
The select board traditionally has not said, you guys are full of it, But there are certain things that either we have additional information, because you're gonna make your presentation on the 11th of December.
Yeah.
Stuff still happens. And the select board have until, I think it's the 3rd week in January is the last budget hearing. So stuff happens in that intro. And there also could be philosophical differences, like you say, the fire department needs $50,000, and we say, no, they need 100, or
Yeah.
they don't need $50,000. So it's stuff like that. The thing also, which I sent to you guys in terms of what the CIP committee is recommending, so that has to be taken in consideration as well, because that affects the tax rate as well, so.
Right.
So we make a recommendation to the select board. Scott is one of them. He happens to be on the committee too. And then they actually look at it and do what they think is best as far as, there's been some years that I know Scott and the select board have gone through the budget and slashed a bunch of stuff because they had to be able to keep the taxes at a reasonable rate.
Right.
And will they do that? They do. If they need to, they will.
Just one of the things that I was a little bit upset with, usually when we end the fiscal year, we usually dump money into the unassigned fund balance. So we budget so much, we spend so much, revenue is budgeted a certain amount, revenues comes in. And usually we put money in. This year, we didn't. And we were about a little under $200,000 short. So that affects us things as well. And the reason that most of that particular was overage or underage or whatever you want to call it in terms of revenue expenses, was in terms of what the chief was just talking about. We had to give so many increases to people just to get them to stay because they're being poached by other departments. And there's some other things that were, cost overruns and stuff like that. So it wasn't a good year. It wasn't a good year at all. I was not very happy with the 8 point, whatever it was, 6 or whatever, 7. So, but yeah, and we've already received calls. What the hell did you do with my tax bill? Blah, blah, blah.
I
So,
didn't see it yet.
it's not good. You can't expect the taxpayer every single year to pulling up expenses like that. Last year, we dropped the tax rate by a nickel. It's something, but that doesn't make up for the big increase this year, so.
Right, well then it's sort of a segue from that, now that I understand that a little better, and just sort of addressing like general concerns and stuff. It seems like, to me, it's not just Lee specific, but just retaining personnel and people is a big deal. Is there some sort of, something that we can do or that people have thought of or thinking of to enact or do that would help retain people better?
The chiefs, the biggest issue we've had in terms of this police chief and the fire chief. That's where most of it. Highway department, we had almost no turnover. In administrative offices, almost no turnover. So it's those two, but they get poached by other places.
But look at those departments and who we've had with us for
Yeah.
umpteen
Well,
years.
it puts stress on the
They're
two
gonna be
chiefs.
better, you know?
It's,
Yeah.
it puts stress on the two chiefs, and it's not fair and it's not nice. But if you think about it from the employee's point of view, fire person here earns like almost $60,000. If they go one town over, where our university sits, they're making probably $25,000 more just to start. I don't begrudge those people doing that. That's looking out for their own interest and whatever. So Lee is always going to be competing against those. And they go a little bit further to the seacoast, to a Portsmouth or Dover, and it's earning even more.
Yeah.
So you can't compete with that.
And there used to be more firefighters, for example, coming up through the system, and so, okay, you start them young and train them, and they stay with you for a few years, and then they move on to one of the bigger ones. Now there's not even any coming up through the system. There's like such a lack of them, so you can't even start them young and go up that way.
Well, the other thing is, the fire department in Lee used to be a lot of volunteers.
Yeah.
That's almost dried out.
I get two, that schedule that Scott gave us, I think.
It's
Two
just
volunteers
different.
left.
Mm.
It's a different
And,
dynamic.
and a few years ago, there were 35,
Yeah,
you know.
so it's a different dynamic. And then the police department, the police chief mentioned it in terms of, there's poaching. I believe beforehand, he didn't really mention it that way, but there was like a gentleman's agreement, you don't poach from your
He always
neighbors.
said that.
Yeah.
But now, departments are so desperate to get people, they've gone to this particular tactic, so.
I was on the civilian interview board for the gentleman that he discussed, that what you asked about the background. The guy that was going through the interview process, somebody else. I was like, this is what we're getting from Blue. And the interview was kind of mind-boggling for me.
So
They
this
were
selection-
actually, well, that was way before I heard the story about his being, looking at another department, but just the interview with the caliber of person was kind of scary.
Well, it's interesting too, it's like, what's the harm in disclosing, yeah, I'm applying for multiple jobs, I'm gonna decide,
Well,
once I get
yeah,
on
and they
my
do a lot
offers.
of what-ifs in the interview. It was very interesting. I never say, if anybody gets an opportunity to sit through one of those, I would encourage you to take it. It's very interesting. But some of his answers, you're like, really?
That's another
So
thing.
all he
Yeah.
needed to
I
say
think
was,
you've done it,
yes, I
right?
am interviewing other places.
It's a good
Oh,
experience,
right.
so if anybody's interested that hasn't done
I was
it,
like, wow.
let us know, because the chief usually asks the select board, do you have anybody that you might think would be good at this?
But I would say, like, to your point, that's pretty standard practice. Like, I work in finance. Like, people are out there looking for jobs and they've got multiple offers at any given time, right?
Yeah,
Like-
I mean, if someone's good, you
There's
would
just a
almost
lack.
expect them
Yeah.
to have multiple.
Right, exactly. And so, like, it's not a disqualifying factor
Yeah.
in most other
Then,
jobs.
usually-
But I think that
Then
the
it's like,
chief's,
why do you lie about it?
It was-
yeah,
it
the
was
chief's
the
point is
lying
the
part.
lying part.
Yeah,
Like, just
yeah.
Right.
tell us.
That's where it gets kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Scott, I was just looking at this worksheet that Andy gave us. The current year actual, I'm a little nervous about the numbers. Because if, for instance, if you look down the end of the first page under town clerk tax wages,
Yeah,
the current year is only 18,000, but we're,
per year tax, where is it? Oh, yeah.
Salary, or, no, what do you?
town, tax, it's $18,389. Does that look like it would be right for her at this point in the year?
How many months are we into the fiscal year?
Oh, we're 4 months into it.
I guess that, okay.
Oh,
that would
so
be
4
that's-
months,
Okay.
not
Okay.
the
And I
end.
think those numbers are reasonable.
Do they look, yeah.
December.
It should be July, so July, August, September, October, 4 months. You probably will have maybe one payroll.
Yeah, okay,
Maybe
so
two.
I was just wondering if the current year numbers were good,
Yeah,
because I know they've had some issues.
So I asked Andy for another copy of this that shows, like, percentage increases in terms of the requests that have been made, just to kind of make it a bit easier on us to
Because
identify.
he doesn't have this, is the current year budget, which current year is he talking about? The year we're in or the one?
1 year in.
He's talking about
So the budget
24.
numbers are not on the year even?
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you mean?
Current year,
The
actual.
budget that we got to discuss, those numbers are not on the
Right,
worksheet.
this is just the FY '25.
Yeah, well, the department is what, under department column, that's what the departments are asking for.
Okay,
Right.
so the department, that is the column, okay.
Yeah.
Department requests, that's the department column. Current year budget is fiscal year
Oh,
'24
so it does
budget
have-
that we've already
Yeah.
approved.
Okay.
Because right now we're in fiscal '24. Okay.
Correct.
It's always confusing.
The only thing I'm not sure of is what this next to last column, what is it, P4/NA? What, I don't know what that is. They're all zeros, so I guess it really doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, so I think he's gonna fill in those, like, once we approve our recommendations, he's gonna fill in the ABC column, and then he'll also fill in the Board of Selectmen column when you guys make your final determinations, I think. But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not sure what that P4NA is.
And the last column is just the warrant article that it follows.
Well, I guess the elephant in the room is the fire department.
Yes.
So it's number 3 on my list.
It's
That's number 3.
Why don't we say,
Well,
what's
what
your
are your
number
more
one?
pressing
Yeah,
concerns?
what do you have?
They're not necessarily in order, but,
Okay.
and we can certainly start with the fire department if you want to.
We can start anywhere.
Start with the fire department. We've already,
I had sent a note to Scott after the meeting, asking, sometimes the chiefs, both of them, will go to the Board of Selectmen and just do like a, this is what I'm thinking of thing.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if he had done that with his salary things, and Scott said he had not.
It's not, as far as I know, no.
Which kind of surprised me. I was surprised at the numbers, but also if we were to do that, where does that leave the police department? Because the police, several of the police officers are not making $25 an hour. And also there are a number of people who are making more than $25 an hour that he put some pretty generous raises in for as well.
I guess I missed him. What was his justification to, like, what was his explanation?
Trying to keep people.
Yeah,
Just trying to
That's what the
keep people.
market bears, basically.
That's what he was saying, yeah.
Plus, he also
Which
said that
is-
most of the people that work for the town of Lee make $25 an hour, which isn't necessarily true. Right?
So, are these pay raises that have already been like approved? Because I know we did some off-cycle pay raises, Scott, and so are these people already getting that pay, or is this an additional proposal to what has already been increased?
This sheet that he gave you,
Yeah.
that's what those people are making right now.
Okay,
So that's what they're being paid now. The thing I do not have is what the police, fire chief is proposing in terms of what he wants to bring his people to.
You mean per hour?
Yeah.
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 You got-
Well, you can tell in terms of, if you look at the fire department's request, which is someplace here, just, it's
On page
almost,
7.
yeah, it's almost $200,000. So the department,
Well, it's 300 altogether, but it's 200 for salaries.
so there's a big jump there, and 70,000 just in terms of firefighter wages. So that's a big chunk right there.
but he's also hiring 2 additional people, right? So,
Well, he's already, he's supposed to have 4 full-timers, and he's only got 2. He just hired another one, so he's still missing 1.
yeah,
So, and also under the chief's salary, the chief is not making 103,000, so he's put in an increase for himself as well.
He's put in increases for everybody, I think.
Yeah, and I do not know what those numbers are. This doesn't tell it.
so just for reference, the entire fire budget going up from 709 to
Well, he's been working
1.015 million is an increase of 43%.
Yep,
Because they've been short-staffed, the chief's been working a lot of hours.
yes,
But he's trying
that's
to
true.
fill the spots.
Well, he is,
Fills
but-
the spot, are we taking that away, or, that's what I'm wondering.
I think.
Or, I mean, I don't question that he deserves it, I'm
Yeah.
sure that he does, but
The thing to ask
if you're
is,
trying
if we
to.
can ask questions, that's one of the things we can do between now and the next meeting is ask ask the fire chief for what his proposed increases for each of his staff. So we've got the number in terms of what is being paid for his staff now. What are the new numbers?
Yeah, I'll make a note of that.
The other thing to point out is that I'd asked Andy if any of the benefits in his budget for payroll taxes and health insurance and stuff, and retirement particularly, if any of those numbers were adjusted for these increases, and they're not.
Okay.
So the benefit burden of anything extra we gave to the fire
Yeah.
department would be incremental to Andy's budget as well.
Because the salary increase results in additional contributions to like their retirement and
Yep.
things like that.
FICA and all of
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah. And I don't know if the health insurance reflects the new people either.
If
We
like
can
a
see.
person's salary impacts the amount of their
Well-
insurance package?
When we hire somebody, when we create a position, we have to budget family.
Mhm.
So I don't know if those two new people that he's bringing on are
Mhm.
included in Andy's health insurance.
Yep, that's a question to
Yeah.
ask him on this sheet. Are those,
Because it might-
Keeping
it
track of
might change
questions.
I am,
things, might
yeah.
not.
Those are positions that were already approved though, so they're,
Well, yeah,
we've
so
had
I
it in
don't
the
know,
past, but we haven't filled them right now.
I just don't know if we have provided health insurance estimates for the new
Yeah.
people.
you don't know if they're included because the names are
Oh,
blacked out
right.
because of
Yeah.
HIPAA?
Okay.
So that's a question to ask in terms of, because he's just bringing on the new firefighter and he's still got one position open. So I assume the new one's in here, but you know what happens when you assume. And is the one that's not filled in here as well? Because we have to budget for that.
Right.
I assume it is, but
Right.
need to ask the question.
All right, so I'm gonna ask, are health insurance estimates included for open positions and new hires that have not yet started?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm also gonna ask for the proposed salary increases for staff. We wanna know what the increase is person by person.
Yep.
That'll, if the select board were to approve those increases, it wouldn't be too long before the police chief was sitting in front of you, because that would make, several of his officers are not making $25 an hour. I don't have a problem with $25 an hour. I was, when you think about paying somebody $20 an hour to carry a gun and get shot at, it's not a career choice I would make.
Yeah, some of them are close. So you've got three of them are almost $24, so $1 an hour, that's not that much. But
It's
True.
just, it's gonna go to other departments too. Because actually Scott made the comment that most people working for the town made at least $25 an hour. Well, that's not true if you look at
yeah,
if you look at the transfer station and the highway department. So, are we starting down a road we really can't afford to walk down?
I'm not so sure you can compare departments like
Well,
that.
you can't compare departments,
But-
but it's human nature being what it is.
Right.
Well, but you do have to worry about like, oh,
I mean-
why should I be a police officer if I can just jump to the highway department and make $5 more an hour?
Exactly,
That's what I mean, yeah. I think we
So
gotta-
right, it is apples and oranges, but at the same time,
It makes a difference.
yeah, I mean, people are gonna compare. No matter what.
yes. And don't go into the illusion that they don't talk to each other,
Yeah.
Yep.
that they do. So,
While we're on the subject of the fire department, what do you think about the increase in the ambulance?
That's number 2 on my list.
Hey, wait a minute. I'm not happy with this.
You're happy with what?
My staple replacement did not work.
I know.
Yeah.
Well,
I
we're
don't
trying to
know.
save money here, Scott, so find
I
yourself
will
a paper
donate
clip.
the Staples so we can go back to Staples.
$9.95 box of Staples.
We're gonna raise Scott's taxes specifically to pay for state.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep,
Right,
just
so
add that to my
where's
tax
the
bill.
ambulance?
Can we
I'll
do
never
that?
notice it.
There you go, yeah.
Per individual basis, tax
Special
rates?
assessment on Scott's state bill.
All right, so what are we doing?
The ambulance
Oh, no,
tripled.
number 2, the ambulance.
Tripled.
Yep,
Tripled
Tripled.
yep.
from McGregor?
Yes.
Yep.
I know like the big thing was they wanted, they had like they wanted to add 2 full-time paramedics.
They want a new building.
So what's your take on that?
Well, I mean,
How
I
much does
can
a paramedic
definitely
cost?
tell. Well, I mean, paramedics are expensive. I mean, it's the whole industry. There's a labor shortage. And I mean, I can tell you as the person that receives the ambulances, having paramedics on the ambulances is huge. You get way better care. Because I can communicate with the paramedics before they even arrive at the hospital. I can have a conversation. I can tell the paramedics to do things, and they're almost like a physician's assistant or physician's extender. Whereas if I have like an EMT basic, they can't do anything. You know, it's basically they can just tell me what's happening. Like I can't give them orders. I can't give them stuff to do because they're just not licensed. They're not legally allowed to do anything. So, you know, just budget aside, on a very practical level, like asking and trying to get more paramedics is very, very reasonable. And, you know, if it's an ambulance service that's covering my home, like I would strongly prefer to have paramedics show up rather than a couple of EMT basics.
Depending on the call.
Right, well, that's true. But I mean, you know, especially if we're slightly.
Lift
low demographic.
assist.
Yeah, right. Well, lift assist, because usually the,
Well,
like,
whatever.
usually the
Fire
fire
department
department
will help.
responds first for that. But, I mean, but anything, you know, more than like, you know, Bobby sprained his ankle, and having the paramedic makes a big difference.
Because they can administer certain drugs.
Yeah, they can do ACLS.
Yeah, so-
I mean, they can, you know, a good paramedic can like run a code, and, you know, like I have
Administer
onboard
certain
conversations,
drugs.
en route conversations with paramedics all the time. And, I mean, you can, just what you can do is a lot more.
Well, we've been getting ambulance service in this town for like 20 grand a year for a long time. And it's
Well, yeah,
finally caught
that's-
up with us.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's interesting, the whole economics of the ambulance system, just across the United States, it's very weird. And yeah, 20 grand a year for, you know, paramedic level ambulance service, you know, that's
It's crazy.
that's not sustainable, and like I wouldn't expect to pay 20 grand a year for
I
that.
think Chris realizes now he should have been ramping this up over the last few years, so he didn't come in and say, oh, by the
Yeah,
way,
that's what I
Yeah.
didn't say during the meeting, but
So
that
what
was
is
my
it?
impression,
Is
is
it
that this is
60
something
now?
that they should have
Well, he
seen
even
a couple
said-
years
No,
ago.
it's
He said
30
that
something
himself,
now. It's gonna be
that, you
90
know,
something.
they kept costs low, but yeah, now it's coming back to them. I wonder what the other towns are thinking about this increase.
The other thing, remember, he said this is an ask,
Yeah.
so.
I liked his answer when you told him, when you said this is an ask, what happens if we don't do it? He said, well, we'll probably have to cut services.
Well, the other thing is that UNH has less risky behavior, so more of the call volume is on us versus going to them. I thought that was an interesting piece of information as
Yeah,
well.
less.
I thought that was interesting. I'm not quite sure how they decide that UNH has less risky behavior.
Well, it's
All those
less,
TikTok challenges and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah.
How can they be less risky?
And also,
At
the
UNH.
thing that was subsidizing them was the insurance that the students have when they have that kind of behavior is better than what other people
So
have.
they get paid.
They get paid
Yes.
better by the year.
Yes.
The cost for the students.
So there's less, you know, alcohol-related
risk.
things, yeah.
Being paid as far as them being
Yeah,
paid. No,
so.
no.
So this is just maybe like out of left field, but like what if, you know, if we thought about maybe a novel idea of this, because he was saying that the majority of time they're not getting paid what they're actually billing for, right? Which I think happens pretty regularly, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
if we said, okay, we're not gonna pay, or we're not gonna budget $93,000, we're only gonna give you whatever, 60, but we will help subsidize for, you know, Lee residents if they have a call and they can't pay the full amount and like make up the difference. Is that possible?
yeah, I mean, because that's an interesting thought.
Committing to that.
Yeah, like more of like a pay for service kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the problem is that like, because you have like residual expense that's, you have to like park the ambulance, maintain the ambulance, like pay the EMTs or paramedics to sit there, and like, you know, there's a cost in between calls, so
Yep.
how do you cover that cost?
Yeah, if you're only paying for the actual service and not for,
See, we don't pay for the actual
Right.
service, that money goes to defray their administrative. Have we been through the formula since you've been on the board?
I don't
Probably
think
not.
so.
Can you explain the formula?
The formula?
For McGregor
If I
specifically?
remember it, they use not the past year, the previous year's numbers.
Call
Do you-
volume.
Do you know more? No?
Yeah. this is what
Yeah,
Doug
it's
was
based
talking
on
about.
call volume between Durham, Madbury, and UNH.
But which portion of their costs? It's not all of their costs, it's some,
Well, they take out whatever these particular towns and entities are paying, that comes off the top, and then they calculate whatever their rates have to be. So, and the other thing that's hanging out
And
there
some of
that's
it is administrative.
yeah,
Like you,
it's hanging out there is at some point, they're gonna have to move into a new building.
right.
So they've been saving a little bit, but not even close to what they would need. So, and they also want something that's kind of centrally located. So that's an expense that's hanging out there that at some point is gonna come due. And I don't think this particular number reflects that they're putting money aside for that.
Where would centrally located be?
Durham,
they would like to stay at the, close enough so a lot of their volunteers are kids and their students. They like it to be walking distance for the students, which
Yeah.
is where it is at the moment.
so if they had it like out on Mass Road in Lee someplace, you wouldn't get as many students going out there.
Yeah,
So
well,
that's
because it's just like, you know, brainstorming, like, is that something we could like take, you know, if we have like a spot and, you know, sort of give it as capital to
Don't we,
McGregor?
do we still house one of the
They
And
ambulances?
use
keep one
that
of the
to sort of reduce
ambulances.
expenses.
I don't know if we still do, we?
I thought we did.
I thought we did too, but I don't know. Because we used to have an ambulance stored downstairs of theirs. It was a backup.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, for those particular respond to it, they have to drive here, get the ambulance, and go to wherever it is, so. but-
What's your thinking about that allocate, about that expense?
Well, they're the only game in town. They provide a very good service. And the thing is, how much is somebody's life worth? So if you say, no, we don't want to have, we just want basic EMTs, we don't want, the paramedics. And they get a call, and they go to your house, and, oh, no, we can't administer that drug, Mrs. Barber, because we don't have a paramedic. So on the way, Mrs. Barber doesn't make it. How much is that worth?
Exactly, that's why I don't even think it's negotiable, frankly.
Yeah,
I think there's some increases that are gonna be palatable to voters and others that are not.
yeah.
No,
And
I'm-
the
Yeah,
ambulance, I
that's
feel like is a
usually
palatable
the percentage of
increase.
people that look at the detail of the budget,
If
That's true.
they're
Yeah.
probably us and like 10 other people in town.
That's true.
Yeah, those people will look at percentage increase and they'll say, what the heck, it went up 300%? No, no way. But the thing is, those things have to be explained when
This is
people say
more
something.
just the kind of wondering out loud for myself, and maybe somebody knows the answer, but like, why is it that the Oyster River towns cooperate on the ambulance, but not like fire or police?
Very interesting question that
It's
you're
about
posing.
control.
It's New England.
It's control.
Yeah.
So,
Not every,
it's item number
not every
4.
fire department
that's
has
number 4.
an ambulance.
Consolidation
Number
of
one
the
is, we
police
haven't
and
gotten
fire.
number one.
I mean,
Very
you know,
There's a lot of money in ambulance and
That's sort of-
paramedic too.
Sure.
And not
But-
every
but I
fire
mean, you know,
department
if there's
has
like,
them.
if there's a, like, you know, how come each town has its own police department, but they all share an ambulance service? Like, why is that? That's a little,
Durham, Lee, and Madbury share a lot of Oyster
School.
River, school district started way back then. ORYA,
Yeah,
everything was,
just-
kind
the-
of shared.
The question regarding police is different from the question regarding fire.
The thing is also, we've also tried transfer station as well, because one of the things we've tried to have negotiations with Madbury is, Madbury has their own part-time police force, they have a part-time fire department, so we've also had conversations with them, the chiefs have, in terms of could we combine? And they've expressed interest, same thing with transfer station. Our public works director lives in Madbury, and they asked him to explore that, and they explored it, and then kind of COVID hit and it died. So one of the things that, at least we're trying to
Madbury is
explore,
smaller,
yeah, is could we provide that particular service? And the thing that comes back all the time is control. So let's say we get hired by Madbury to provide service X. Well, what kind of control do they have? If we say, hey, we have X number of officers and they're just gonna cover a larger area, Madbury might say, no, I want you to hire more. Well, who has control of that? Do we have control of it? Do they have control of it? And if we say we have control of it, then they feel, oh, no, we're not gonna get a say, we're not gonna do it. So it's those kind of conversations. And I think the Durham Ambulance Service kind of grew up from a necessary need. And then it's just kind of prolonged itself, and it's become what it is, so. And also, people need to have comfortable in terms of those particular relationships. Other towns do it, it's possible, but you gotta be comfortable with whoever's providing the service, so. And the one thing we explored with Madbury is in terms of solid waste. We have a very good solid waste facility. People from around the state and out of state come to view it, to see, we do it right, how could they do it? So the thought was, maybe we can combine that and we can provide that kind of service to them. So that's something that's explored.
Transfer station.
COVID hit and it kind of like died. But yeah, there's some cost savings for both entities in terms of having services that are, the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily like immediate, like for this budget, but just longer term. I mean, it seems like, all these small towns, like, I guess
There's a lot of
doing-
duplication
Yeah.
of services in a lot
I
of
mean,
different
it's very
ways.
funny like that.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we have, there's a thing called the Lamprey Solid Waste Cooperative. It's a cooperative of 12 entities that are in the seacoast, and they band together for their, now you're giving it to me.
I get it.
Hauling municipal waste away. So we combine that particular service and we go to Waste Management and say, hey, we've got, 12,000 tons a year. What kind of rate can we get? We get a better rate than if each individual town went to them and said, hey, I've got 1,000 tons. To them, that's nothing. So we get a better rate, and that rate is going up, so.
Maybe she can share trucks.
So in my presentation to the select board, maybe I can mention that,
Sorry.
we'd recommend that we explore
People and
some
region.
partnerships with neighboring municipalities
Yeah.
for things like police, fire, and I guess it kind of, everything, right? Police, fire,
Yeah,
transfer station.
yeah,
At least Maverick, I mean, makes sense.
yeah. Well, even if you put Lee and Madbury together, we're not even close to what Durham is. So
Right,
I don't think
that's what
Durham
I'm
would be
saying.
interested. So,
So that, right, I was gonna say
Never.
the comment, it's not my impression from what you're saying, that is Durham doesn't like wanna play with anybody really.
I
They're
don't wanna
just
say
big
that,
enough
but.
as it is.
Yeah.
And Lee and Madbury seems to make sense as far as maybe.
Well, there's a bit of voter consternation happening in Durham right now too, that I've seen play out on Facebook because they're not happy with their tax increase also. I think I saw that their town administrator makes something like $300,000 a year.
Todd does?
Close.
Really?
I don't think it's 300, but I think it's getting close. But yes, yes, yes.
How much do town administrators across the state?
It's
in the
all
region?
over the place.
It depends how
I
big
mean, I
the
guess
town
it-
is.
Right, but I mean, is there like I wonder if you could like break it down,
There's
like
forms of
per
we would-
capita?
It's so hard to compare anything. Remember 100 years ago, we had Chet Merch look at different fire chiefs in Francis
Chet's not old.
That's not that old.
Our former police chief, we asked him to do
Right.
a similar analysis to what you're talking about for police chiefs. And it turned out that police chiefs across the state, there's not a common job description for police chief. And for one town versus another town, the salaries, first of all, the salaries were all over the place. But the duties were all over the place, the titles were all over the place, the departments were all over the place. So
Responsibility was
we
all
got
over
this
the
nice
place.
schedule that told us absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
It's,
Tom did it once
Yeah,
too, I
the,
think.
the other thing in terms of town administrators, this title, our town administrator has no authority other than what the Board of Selectmen gives him. In the town of Durham, Todd Sillick has managerial executive powers. He doesn't have to go to the town council and say, can I hire this person, can I fire this person? He has control over all that. So the difference in the two positions, they're both called town administrators, but he has way more power and way more responsibility than our town administrator does. Basically, our town administrator originally was called a secretary of the Board of Selectmen. So a certain person that had that particular position insisted that they be called something else. So that's how we got that particular name, but he has no executive privilege other than what we give him,
Yeah.
so.
You know, these little New
so are
England
you,
nuances.
your personal opinion, would you be interested in leaving this ambulance number alone? Or would you be proposing that it
I-
be trimmed?
give me options, but I don't think we have any other
I
options.
don't think we have any options.
And the
either.
thing
I was
is-
hoping you were gonna say that.
The thing that worries me is because if you don't use them, let's say, no, we're not gonna use them. What are your other options? And the services like Stewart and those kind of places, they're not even close to being as good as those particular services that we're getting now. Yeah, you might get Stewart for a lesser amount, it's probably gonna be more, and you're gonna get worse service. That's not something I wanna even
Yeah.
contemplate.
So-
It's not gonna be as timely or anything.
That's been going on my mind, specifically with respect to ambulances, when you go back to my early audit days, right, is sometimes you'll come across a line when you're doing an audit or review, and a particular account has gone up by 400%. And you're like, wow, it went up by 400%, then you look at the actual numbers, and they're really small, right? It's a $100 account that went up to $500.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if this is similar because they're going from a little over 30 to a little over 90. It's a $60,000 increase in a total budget of between 5 to 6 million. So I'm not saying I feel one way or the other, I'm actually saying I'm not sure how to feel about it, but that's
It's
something,
good, yeah.
something to keep in mind.
It's good to pose the question, and the thing is, for new people, ask those questions.
Yes.
Because one, it makes us think, but also, you get to learn so much more in terms of, because you have to make a decision as, you know, just like the rest of us. Some of us have been here longer than the two of you, but, you know, ask those questions, because they're good questions. So don't feel like, oh, I don't really want to ask that question, because you might think I'm
There are
stupid.
no dumb
No.
questions.
No. So,
I personally think that what they're asking for is reasonable. I think as a taxpayer in the town, that's a service that I fully support and want to maintain the quality
Yeah,
of.
like that's, what are you gonna do, refuse it? Like, what are you left with then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly when karma shows up, right? Like you vote no and then you need the ambulance.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know, like we
Exactly.
talked about at the beginning of this part of the conversation, I mean, it's probably something that they should have anticipated a couple of years ago.
Yeah. So
That's-
we'll
that's
say,
where
we're gonna
it
approve your
comes
budget request, do better planning next time, please.
Yeah. So my point
We
about
had
the,
COVID and we had all everything
Yeah.
in the mix
There's a
that totally
multitude of
screwed everything up for
circumstances.
everybody, but.
I'm still waiting to see
Yeah.
what Eric's number one
Yeah,
is.
so
okay, so I wish I had like the Family Feud thing up there. So ambulance was my number 2, fire department was my number 3, and my thoughts on the ambulance bit also apply to the fire department, but I know how I feel about that because the fire department number, the beginning, or the current year budget number is a little over 700,000, and then they kick it up to a little over $1 million, so it's the 43% increase, but we're talking with a starting number of a little over 700,000. And then, so it's an increase of 300,000, if you go look at the whole thing on the back page, it's an increase of about 600,000 or 12%, so half of that 12% increase
It's the fire department.
is the fire department. So, and, I mean, so I don't feel good about that one.
I don't think any of us feel good about that
I
one.
think one of the things I
Happy to
use,
state the audience.
one of the things I use is a litmus test, because I'm usually the one that goes up and talks about the budget. My litmus test is it something I can defend in front of those people?
Mhm.
If I can't defend it, I'm not gonna support it.
Who are those people?
The
The
people
voters
that
of the
have
fire
to be taxed.
department?
At the deliberative session.
Constituents.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, that's the thing. If I can say, okay, yeah,
25 people.
somebody gets up and says, you know, I'm not in favor of this ambulance thing, I can stand up, whatever I'm gonna do, and justify that particular increase. If I can't justify it, I'm not gonna be supportive of it. And unfortunately for the Board of Selectmen, it only takes 2. So sometimes I'm out of the majority and sometimes I'm not, but, you know, that's my litmus test for getting up in front of those people, because there's nothing worse than getting up and trying to support something that you don't believe is appropriate. That's unfortunate.
Eric.
So that was-
So the only thing with the fire department, it's like,
Well, Scott's
It's
been
kind
coming
of
every
similar.
year and saying, we're headed toward this fully. When I was first on the budget committee, we still had mostly volunteers. And every year Scott has come to us and said, this is where we're headed. And one year, he said, I really think we're gonna end up with an all-paid, full-time fire department. And it's gonna cost $500,000. Well, here we are, 5 or 6 years later, and we're about where he said we'd be. And incrementally, over that time period, it cost about the $500,000 he told us it would. But the department looks nothing like it did, even 5 years ago, nothing. And you still have him sitting here saying he was working 80 to 100 hours a week.
That's
So-
the other concern the Board of Selectmen have, because Chief Dronsfield and Chief Nemeth are doing way more than what
They're working huge
Way,
hours.
way more.
Chief Dronsfield has told us that in probably about now, it's about 2.5 years, he's gonna retire.
I know, and well,
So, you know.
Nemet's not far behind, right?
No, supposedly one's Tweedledee and Tweedledum, I never figured out which one is which. But they have kind of indicated that when one goes, the other one's gonna go.
Yeah,
So the other thing is, you know, who's gonna take their place? Because Nemet's been here forever, Dronsfield's been here forever. And that's gonna be change of regimes, you know, you're gonna have to hire somebody.
And that's gonna be like a 20% bump in whoever
It's
the new
gonna be
salary.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that gets back to number 4 on my list, is change in the structure of the police and fire. And I'm not suggesting anything other than, I think it's time that we think about a change and have a kind of a grand conversation with everybody about it, because each town may want to have control over these things, but what is the point of having control over an out-of-control department? And when I originally wrote this down on my list, I was more thinking about the change in the structure within the department itself, right? Like you've got a chief, you've got a lieutenant, you've got a, you know, level 3, level 4, level 5, whatever that is, and you've got a certain number of people at each one. But maybe there's a way to rethink that internal structure so that we can pay people more, fewer people, but they're more experienced and able to do more as a group. But again, I'm not saying I know the answer to that. I'm saying I think we need to think about it. Which gets, all of that gets back to my number 1 item on the list, which is a more general thing about employee salaries, which is some departments have come to us and not made a change at all. Some departments have made a change for some of their employees, but not all. And some have come and asked for big changes to their employees. And the one thing that sticks out for me, not just because it's just us, but other organizations that I deal with, is that if you are not increasing your employee's salary for cost of living adjustment every year, you are essentially cutting their salary in terms of real dollars. And so I am worried that some of our departments have not taken that into account, and that this is perhaps part of the reason that people are leaving, is because they get a bump in pay at one point in time, and then a year or 2 or 3 passes, there is no increase for inflation, and then they're like, yeah, I'll take the 10 grand signing bonus to make up for what you should have been paying me for the last 3 years. So again, I'm not necessarily telling everybody what to do, but I am, say, highly suggesting that no one's salary should be totally static.
Scott, you want to talk about the Board of Selectmen's role in that historically?
Yeah, because one of the things that you're also missing is usually, and I don't see it here listed, but under 4199, we usually put in a salary enhancement, which is usually an across the board, and or depending on what we want to do is bonuses or some kind of, merit increase or something like that. So that's not in here. We haven't even had that discussion yet. But yes, it will not be static. And I also, in terms of some departments, they've asked for increases, others haven't. So yes, So that will be looked at, but that's not in here. There's usually a line item on 4199 there. I don't see it.
I'll ask Andy.
Yeah. I think maybe he just sticks it underneath other government.
So, I mean, and then, is there like a COLA table that the town uses that like?
Yes.
It just
Yes, well,
applies to
we try
everything?
to, we try to. We usually use the Northeast Boston something or other, in terms of what that percentage is. But I agree with Eric, you know,
Yeah,
if
but
we
then
don't,
how does it get applied? Like,
we apply it across the board.
but, okay, then how is it like calculated into like these budget salary proposals?
What will happen is, just like this particular sheet here, see this number right here? That's something that we will put in, let's say it's 3%, I'm just throwing that out there. 3%, this particular spreadsheet will calculate what that COLA amount is and how much these particular ancillary expenses will increase by. And then Andy will take this particular spreadsheet and allocate it throughout here.
Okay.
So, but yeah, that's what this, we developed this spreadsheet years ago. So, as you can see, there's a thing for the cost of living increase, merit, and bonus.
So then, I mean, but then shouldn't that COLA adjustment be in each department's budget proposal?
It will, but not, you will not see it. You'll
It's
see
usually
it
afterwards, it's after we
afterwards.
finish our work that the Board of Selectmen does it.
Because part of that, and I'm just speaking for myself, part of that particular calculation is based on what the total number is. So if the number is going to force our tax rate up 9%, we're gonna have to look in terms of what that is. So maybe we give them whatever the cost of living is, but there's no merit or bonus or something, I don't know. That's,
But then would you say like, I mean, his point is absolutely valid, like I see it in healthcare all the time. Like
Yeah.
if you're not constantly adjusting,
Yep.
like that's a curve that you don't wanna get behind because
Yep.
everything will just, the wheels will fall off the wagon.
yeah.
So, I mean, are his concerns, like, it's because it's not necessarily visible in these budget proposals, but, I mean, is it, I guess I'm kind of, I don't even know how to ask the question that I want to ask.
Eric,
I would say that it should be in there.
Yeah,
Eric's, all his point, not to talk about you in the third person, all his points are totally valid.
yeah. Eric
The
does
thing
all
is,
time.
if you want to do that, one of the things that, and this, remember, this group is advisory, you can say whatever you want. But if you say, yes, we think the COLA, in terms of when she makes her presentation, if you think the COLA should be 4%, 5%, whatever it is, put that in your comments, so we can take that into consideration.
Right, but I mean, you just, there's a bazillion different COLA tables that you could use as long as you stick to a system. But then it's like, like he was saying, you get some departments that don't touch the salaries at all, and then some do. So you get this weird, everything's all over the place. But how do we, how do we know if someone is or isn't calculating in like a COLA adjustment? And then how do we know if on the back end, after this level, like what gets padded on to everything?
That's part of the question, and I think she captured it, is in terms of what are these salaries that are current and what are being proposed? Because you're gonna see some of them are gonna be the same, some of them are gonna be different. So if Andy can say, okay, Steve Bullock is making $93,288, he's proposing $93,288.
Right, but is that gonna end up being, whatever, that 3% more?
Yes.
For the COLA adjustment?
You can, yes, you can calculate whatever that happens to be. The thing is, the 3% is part of it, but also all these other things are gonna increase as well. Like for retirement, it'll increase, just talking about Steve, retirement increase, Social Security will increase. So those things, because just because he makes $93,288, we really pay $113,540.82 to have that particular position.
Sure.
So,
Dave, historically, that adjustment's been done by the Board of Selectmen after we do our presentation. So I think the increases that you're seeing by some of the departments that you were talking about, I don't think they're expecting their increases to include that. I think they're still expecting the Board of Selectmen to do something additional, because historically they always have. So those increases reflect something else in their thinking other than COLA.
So it's like performance or market rate adjustments.
Yes.
And then we're gonna have a separate increase for
Exactly.
cost of living adjustments.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that the numbers in the fire department are not cost of living. They're figuring that'll get added on top of it,
Right.
so.
So then compare that process with, say, like the state or the feds, where any employee is on like a schedule, right? You've got step 1 through 14, you know, they move over time through each step. You have a uniform COLA for each one, so then the whole thing becomes formulaic and universal.
Yep. The fire department, you don't have that, you should have that too. The
Did they
fire
do a
department-
step?
Yes,
Yeah.
the fire department does have a step
They
program,
do.
so that's another
Mhm.
question. Please provide us the step program that's in place at the fire department, because they do have that, Eric. One of the things the selectmen have said, you know, if you're gonna do it, at least I've said, if you're gonna do it for one department, you have to do it for everybody. So I know the fire department's put it in place, they've had it for like 2 years, I think.
That's right.
So I'm not sure, and I don't think the other departments have done it yet, but they have got significant increases. So in that step program, based on, you know, the years that you've been here and also what particular position you have, there's certain rates for things. And so, you know, if I'm a firefighter 1, I know in 2 years I'll be making this, or 5 years or whatever. So they can tell that. One of the things that the chief has always been very adamant about is he loses people because people don't know what they're gonna get, you know, next year or the year after. This program will allow them to say, okay, well, if I stay here for 3 years, now I'm making this.
There be any benefit to create tables like that for the whole town?
Yes, that is or was our intention. But it's a work in progress, so.
Small town, with small departments.
No.
One
Yeah,
of the other
it's
things
a-
that Scott has done for us annually is to take the increases in the budget and ballpark what it's gonna do to the tax rate, making guesstimates on the other pieces. And
This
tell-
Scott.
This Scott,
Yeah.
this Scott. Have you had a chance to do any of that?
Not yet, but I'm gonna do it before the next meeting, so,
And
because.
those are really ugly numbers. Those are really, really.
Usually.
But I mean, he translates it into, okay, if, based on what the school is saying, our tax rate for the school is gonna go up 5%, or, you know, and we'll guess that the county's gonna go up 5%, we'll guess the state's gonna go up 5%. So what would the increase in our budget do to the rate?
And the thing is, like I said before, revenues are not gonna jump up, you know, big time. So you're looking at probably the same amount of revenue, maybe a little bit more. But as I said last year, the last fiscal year that just ended in June 30th, we were shy $200,000.
That's the first time since I've been doing this.
Yeah, that's the first time I've done it too, and it's
You
because
didn't
of,
have that money to kick in. Usually you kick in 250,000 or whatever.
yep, that's what we did
To
2
keep
years
it the
ago.
same.
Or last year we did.
But you didn't have it.
We didn't have it, because our policy has been, whatever is extra that gets put in the unassigned fund balance, we'll put against that, at least, against the tax rate, because that gives the money back to the taxpayer. But this year, we didn't have it. They did put
It was spent, or
23,000.
where was it?
We overexpended, and revenues were down a little bit.
It's all
So,
salaries, right?
mostly salaries. So,
That you had to increase because they were going to be
Yeah.
gone.
and,
No one, no police, no fire, no public works.
Well, let's hope that Starbucks is a big revenue generator, okay? Let's just cross your
There you
fingers and
go.
go get a $7
Every time
latte.
I drive by the traffic circle, my
Sometimes-
kids are like, when am I gonna
sometimes
get my
in-
Starbucks breakfast sandwich?
sometime in the spring.
Oh,
So
they
they're
got
working on it.
That's when they're looking at
They're
all
on
that,
that,
really?
Starbucks.
Well, they have like an impossible breakfast sandwich.
So
Anyway,
being in close proximity to Starbucks should raise the property value of that busted house next to the.
Yes.
next to
They're
the car
still
wash.
trying to sell that and make it something.
That busted house is going away. I don't know if they've approved it yet, but the people that own the car wash
Oh,
are gonna put in an automotive enhancement shop. You can bring your super duper car in and they will do enhancements to make it more super duper. So that particular old building will go away, so you'll have a little bit more of an assessed value than the dumpy house, so.
What about the lot across the street from it?
what happened to the
It used to-
hot dog guy?
No, that fell through. No hot dog guy.
Oh,
No hot dog guy. So,
Get you a costume and a bucket.
Yeah, help you out there.
so, but, yeah,
So,
so,
yeah, huh.
thing is, more
That
businesses that go
was-
through,
Agway or something owned it or something.
Oh, the
It showed
lot
up
across-
on,
Yeah, a lot across.
Yeah.
it used to be Christmas
trees
trees
and
and then
plants.
plants and,
Yeah,
yeah.
no more, no more.
But it's just sitting there.
Well, whoever owns it, you know, the lot where that dilapidated house and the car wash is, there was a lawyer from
Oh, that
New York
was
that
so
owned it, and he wanted to sell it, but he was asking way too much. So I don't know what happened, if he brought his price down or
Or someone paid it finally.
could be.
Who knows?
Hey Scott, when it comes to salaries, did pretty much everybody on the town payroll get an increase during COVID?
I
At
would
some
say
point?
so, yes,
Okay.
yes. The other thing we did is, from the last time we met, there's a gentleman in the transfer station that is now full-time and he gets benefits. That kind of like dropped into our laps, because we were looking for somebody and he was part-time. He has an outside business and he was looking for something more stable.
Larry.
So, well, no names, but, you know.
You can't name names.
You just did, so it doesn't make any difference. So he's there, and it's like, oh my God, somebody looking to, you know, take that particular position. We're like, oh, thank goodness, because he was having a hard time finding people. So, but he's an excellent worker. He enjoys doing what well, except when it's freezing cold and it's sweating hot, but, you know, and that's like the positive thing. The fire chief, the gentleman he's gonna hire, the person he's gonna hire, came in because the department he works for, he got sick and tired of whatever was going on there. He says, I'm looking for something else to do. And the chief's like, yeah, we'll take you. So of course he checked him out and stuff, but those are far and few between in terms of those things happening, so.
What do you guys think about, like, across the board saying, we're gonna reject any and all salary proposed increases, but we're going to give everybody across the board a cost of living increase? So, kind of taking away like merit increases or market adjustment increases that may have been proposed, denying those, but saying everybody's still gonna get something, but it's gonna be more in line with inflation and a cost of living increase.
I mean, that's a fine line, because, you know, you start doing that, I mean, with a lot of positions, that's probably okay. But then with other positions, like, if you have a department or something that if they're like really far behind the curve, and you sort of hamstring them like that, then, you know, they can spontaneously combust and just lose everybody. I mean, what you're saying makes sense, and if every department was on top of things, I think it would be a much, much stronger idea.
Well, I guess the reason I was just asking Scott about the increases that were given during COVID is because we did a market assessment, right? During that time, to help us determine what the salary increases were going to be. I know that we didn't always follow the guidance,
Yes.
but like we did an assessment of salaries for all the town employees at one point.
Yeah, well, at some point, I don't remember when that was.
Maybe it was 2 or 3 years
But
ago at this point.
The problem is, which kind of Pat touched on before, is our police chief does this, comparing him with other police chiefs, like some police chiefs, they're volunteers and they get paid a stipend, you know? You have to look at exactly what those particular people are doing. Like our town administrator, if you compare our town administrator against Durham's town administrator, he's woefully underpaid. But then you have to look at what that town administrator does versus ours. And that's very intensive in terms of, you know, what you need to look at. So,
Same for fire, same for, yeah, police. And we
It's
have
hard.
done the studies in
Like-
past years as far as call volume and all that, and what they're responsible for, and what type of call, like, the police are going on, and so forth. So there's a lot involved with that.
Well, I just wanna be
And these
mindful too,
problems.
like from a taxpayer perspective, I wanna be mindful of, you know, we're raising taxes. Not everybody in our taxpayer base is
Absolutely.
getting salary increases. In fact, they're probably not, you know, and so like, I wanna be mindful of the optics of some of these increases also, because to me, that's not really palatable. If I'm not getting a raise and we're giving everybody in town, you know,
If you're working for the
raises.
town, you mean?
no, I mean, just like generally,
Taxpayers.
yeah, taxes are going up, salary's not going up, because my personal employer isn't paying me anymore, for the same reasons that we don't wanna pay people anymore, because everybody's trying to adhere to their budgets.
Well, but then, to play devil's advocate with that, I mean, it's like maybe your employer is more conscientious about like staying on top of what, the market bears
Could
for your
be.
salary.
It could be.
And then, our fire department has just fallen behind on like what firemen are actually making in the area.
Yeah, I mean, there's a million
What
different
it is
scenarios.
to keep them.
Yeah,
The problem with them going somewhere else,
The other thing you have to
a real
consider
problem.
is the people who don't have control over that aren't working, they're retired.
Mhm.
Those are the people I'm concerned about. When we, 3 years ago, I think it was 3 years ago, we did the re-eval, and one of the things we didn't change was the elderly exemption.
Yeah.
And I was talking to some other town administrators, and also, they said, well, you should know that. You should know if you do a reassessment, they're gonna now become a lot more liable for their taxes, and you should be increasing that. It's like, okay, I did not know that. So we did it that year afterwards, but there was, I don't know, like 30, 40 people that
In fact,
never got to the tax bill. Never since we did that. But we raised the assessment value on their houses, went past the elderly exemption, so now they're liable for this particular tax bill. No names, but this elderly lady, she's in her 80s, I think, and she got a tax bill for a little over $1,000. And she wrote us a note and said, should I pay this or should I not pay for my medicine? And we're like, ooh. So we abated her taxes, and the next year when we passed the thing, now her tax bill's back to zero. But it's those people, those vulnerable people that they have no control. The government just gave them, Social Security gives them 4% coming up, whatever. So it goes up a little bit, but people on those fixed income, those are the people I worry about when we raise taxes like this one, almost 9%. How are some of those people gonna afford that? And the thing is, John will understand this, is if those particular people are pushed out of their homes and they have to go live someplace else, most likely a family with kids is gonna come in, and this is gonna cost the rest of us even more money. Because they're probably gonna have 2.3 kids. So every kid is like $30,000. So their tax bill is probably $10,000, so they've got 2.3 kids, so that's another $50,000-$60,000 that we're gonna have to pay. So it behooves us to keep those people in their houses as long as possible. So, but yes, it's the same concept, but maybe.
Which makes your suggestion with the COLA, I mean, it's probably more palatable. Just in terms of like, selling it to people.
Yeah.
If my COLA went up by 4%, then sure, it
Yeah.
makes sense that I have to pay 4% more for my town's employees.
Yeah.
But like I said, I wonder if that's gonna hamstring people and expedite departures.
I think it certainly would, it
Certainly
definitely would.
departments, yeah.
It would, but also, if we're talking about, okay, let's kind of think about some radical ideas and maybe partnering with other neighboring, municipal services, like maybe some departures expedites some of those conversations and makes them more top of mind for the department heads. I don't know, like hypothetical, but
Yeah,
it could
sure.
potentially.
The other thing you have to remember is, when your typical taxpayer in the town of Lee, any place, gets their tax bill, at least in Lee, there's 4 parts to that tax bill. And who gets held responsible for all 4 parts?
Us.
This town. So I had a conversation with Dr. Morse 2 years ago. We had breakfast at Sunny's. And he's saying, how are things going? I said, yeah, we just sent out tax bills or whatever. And he says, how's that going? I says, well, we're getting a lot of complaints because things went up. And at that particular year, the tax bill for the town didn't go up very much. It was the school, because we had the new middle school. So I said, we're getting complaints about the tax bill going up, blah, 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 blah. He says, well, they all voted for it. And I said, yeah, but do you guys get any complaints about that? No, nobody ever complains, because they complain to the town, not to the school.
Yeah.
And you have to remember that, so even if the town, if we're control of the town, if we say, you know, the tax rate for the town of Lee went up 1%, and the school rate went up a whole bunch, they're gonna look at us and say, what the hell are you doing? So, you know, it's perception. And you can educate people and tell them it's made up of 4 parts, this is how much each room went up. They just sell the bottom line. My taxes just went up 9% and you're responsible, so.
About the school board, just for a minute. and John
Don't
knows this.
get us started on the school board.
No, I just want to mention one thing, and then I have a question about the library. At the CIP meeting the other night, Brian Cisneros said he's not running again for the school board. And he said that 2 of the other members are not either. And so there will be vacancies. So if you know anybody who's interested in running for the West River School Board.
So before you go on for your library question, just curious, does anybody have any ideas on what's gonna happen to school funding since that New Hampshire Supreme Court ruling that said that it was unconstitutional? I don't know how it's gonna
They've been
impact that, I
fighting about
haven't
this
looked
for how
into
many
it,
years?
Well,
honestly.
they've done it before and
30
nothing really
years.
happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing is really, they've been fighting about that for 30 years.
Okay, so don't expect any
Don't
immediate
expect
changes?
immediate changes.
Okay, got it.
The legislature will hem and haw and all those kinds of things, because where are they gonna find the money to fully fund it? They're gonna have to raise taxes, and New Hampshire's one of those, no
Yeah.
state sales tax, whatever, until you start having something that is broadly supported, which no taxes really is, you're not gonna get any change. You're gonna get the legislature doing these little sneaky things with the little formulas to make it all look, but it isn't. You're never gonna get to a point until something really happens that's bad, like a sales tax or something like that, so that it gets spread out, or an income tax or something like that. But we are, as a state, proud of no sales tax and no income tax. That's what,
We have lots of taxes, we just, most
yes,
people don't pay
they're
them.
not seen.
They're getting rid of IND. I can't understand. Anyway, library, last year, we had this funky thing called ancillary payroll
Oh, is
expenses.
that not in there?
What page are you on, Pat?
I'm on page 13 and 14.
Okay.
I was just going through and quickly looking at departments that changed radically.
Yep.
And it looks like the payroll, that the budget for the library has gone down. Is that because the 67,000 is the?
He hasn't allocated it out yet.
Okay, yes, okay.
So the ancillary expenses are retirement, FICA, all those particular things, also in terms of healthcare insurance and stuff like that. So they're actually in the budget in a different
They're in Andy's
location.
budget.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
So
technically,
that's another thing that needs to be,
yeah,
it
so,
doesn't change it, it's just a geography issue.
yeah.
Okay.
So you're saying that 67,000 for ancillary expenses is
Yeah.
already included in Andy's budget, or it needs to
Yes.
be moved to Andy's budget?
No, it's included in Andy's
Yeah.
budget and will ultimately get allocated back to the library.
So if you go
I see,
to
okay.
The payroll taxes and the retirement
financial,
for the employees of the library.
personnel administration, it's all in personnel administration, almost all of it. So the health insurance line, which is the third one down, dental insurance to some respect, social security to some respect, and then the retirement ones, I believe they're in group 1, I believe. So it's personnel administration, retirement, group 1. So some of those particular numbers are gonna be pulled out of those lines and stuck over here, so you have an understanding of what it actually costs to do the library. We've been fighting with the financial people about doing that, they don't wanna do that. But,
You mean the people that are not doing our county?
yes, yes, but they don't like that, so
You don't like that, how come?
you'll have to ask them.
Oh, okay.
I have my opinions, but you have to ask them why they don't.
Okay,
Because the difference is just, and I think you guys got this already, is in terms of the library is control of their own area. So they set basically salaries and what they're gonna spend themselves. They usually follow what we're doing, so let's say, for instance, we say the COLA is gonna be 5%. What we actually do is we budget 5%, and we give that money to them, they can allocate it to where they want. So if they say, yeah, okay, well, 5% is $5,000, we're gonna give $4,000 in raises and $2,000 in bonuses. They can do that. But traditionally, what we've done is give them the same amount of money that percentage would be for their staff, and they allocate those particular monies.
My next question relates to the transfer station.
Yep.
I was not here the night Steve did his presentation,
Mhm.
and there are a couple of things in the budget that, the clerical person,
Yep,
uh,
financial assistant, the part-time admin assistant.
is there a budget for that?
Yep. In the department, it's at $20,000.
Okay, I see the actual this year,
Bless you.
and there's no budget next to it. part-time
No,
clerical
there
wages?
should be, because we authorized it, so I'm not sure. I can't speak to that.
I'm on page 10 of 14.
Oh, 10? Oh, I thought you were on 9.
No, I'm on
10. Where?
sanitation administration.
Part-time clerical wages.
Part-time clerical, $13,521
I
with no
think
budget.
maybe that's where they're paying for the assistant. I'm not
Or is
sure
it
why.
budget for the assistant?
I think budget is $20,000 under highway.
They also curiously have the opposite effect in the DPW manager.
The DPW manager, he gets paid a percentage out of sanitation or waste management and partly out of highway. So there's
So the
75.
13,000 is a share of Steve's wages?
No, the 13,366
Yeah,
should be part of Steve's wages.
and the rest of it is,
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
sure where they're expending some of this, because if you look under clerical wages, what you're looking at under sanitation, there's $13,521.41. I
Yeah.
think that's the assistant.
okay, so where's the budget for the assistant?
I
Is
do
that the
not know.
20,000 that's under highway?
I don't see any 20,000 under
On
I think it
highway,
is.
on page 9, about halfway down the page, there's a part-time administrative assistant with a
Where's that?
budget of 20,000. Page 9,
Yep,
about halfway down the page.
6 down in highway and streets administration.
6 down. Oh, okay. Yeah, but that's in what he's asking for this year,
Part-time assistant,
or this coming fiscal year. I'm talking about expenses for this.
I know, but I'm
current fiscal
saying, I think the expenses are in one department, and the budget
Yes.
for next year is in the other
year.
department.
I would
But
concur.
we just need to make sure that's the
Yeah,
same person.
maybe that's a question you can
Okay.
ask him, Stacy.
Yep,
Does that question make sense, Stacy?
Yes.
yeah, it does.
Yes, it does.
And also, we're right, highway manager
Yeah.
and his salary that he's proposed, plus the DPW manager salary that he's proposing is aligned with what he's currently making on Andy's sheet here, so those are
So-
those line items.
The weird thing is, I think the 79 plus the 13 is what he's making now, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
He has not proposed
Right.
an increase for himself.
Now, the waste manager operator full-time, is that the foreman of the
Waste
transfer
manager.
station? Back on page 10.
You're making me
on that.
confused.
I
The
know.
waste management operator full-time,
Is that the foreman?
foreman,
there's 2 positions in that, I believe. There's 2 people in that, I believe.
Because
You've
that is a
got,
pretty good jump.
where is it? No, you've got
that's
Ben
four.
and Chip, I believe. I think that's it too. Well, maybe not.
I thought Chip was
The foreman is
Was the foreman up above?
Chip, I think.
yeah.
And then the 2 ones are then,
So the next
Joe
line
and-
item has 2 people in it this year that didn't have 2 people last year?
I think they did, but they get increases though.
He didn't do a lot of salary increases.
One of them, we increased all the particular people at the transfer station. Andy will have that number.
Okay.
But the thing is, one of the questions we can ask is, in sanitation administration, break down who is in what. Because
And then
I agree with you, the
full-time.
part-time clerical wages, I assume that's Julia. But the thing is, if anything, should be in highway. But then if you look in highway, the part-time admin assistant is now budgeted for this year, so what are they doing? That's confusing.
Is she full-time, she's part-time one place and part-time another, or she's
She's
part-time?
part-time with us, and then she works for somebody else, but I
Oh,
know
She's got a
okay.
job outside of town.
outside of town.
That's Julia, yeah.
So she does a lot of her stuff from home. So that's Warren's daughter.
Yeah. I know Julia,
You know that.
yeah.
So,
She grew up with my daughter. I coached her in soccer for years.
was she any good?
Yeah,
Oh,
she's
okay.
really
There
good.
you go. There you go.
She's very athletic.
So the other thing is, do we have any other questions that Stacy can ask, so we'll have answers for the next time?
So here's my list of questions that I'm gonna send. We're gonna ask the fire chief for proposed salary increases for staff. We wanna know what the increases are person by person in terms of their hourly rate increases. We're gonna ask about health insurance estimates and if they're included for open positions or new hires that have not yet started. We're gonna ask about cost of living increases and if they're going to be proposed for this year. We're gonna ask about the STEP program for the fire department and inquire as to whether the current budget proposal includes those increases for that STEP program. We wanna know, maybe this was just me that I wrote down, but I wanna know the last time each of the town employees received a pay raise. We're gonna ask about how much of the personnel administration dollars in Andy's budget are associated with the library, and we're gonna clear up this thing about the clerical assistants, and if there's a mismatch between where the budgeted dollars are and where the actual expenditure is happening from in terms of the line items there.
So do all the questions go to Andy and then he?
Yeah, I'm gonna send them over to Andy, yeah.
Can you, I think you're number one, can you do number one again?
I'm asking about proposed salary increases for fire department staff.
Can you explain that to all departments?
Yeah.
Because you've got some people that are in here getting, like, for instance, the assistant town administrator, she's currently making 68, 66, 809, 60, and he's put her in for 71,000.
And there are some increases in the transfer station.
Yeah, so
Highway.
if we ask for everybody who's getting increases that are in this particular budget, because as you guys have all mentioned, and ladies have mentioned, some people put in exactly what they're making now, others have not. And that's something you need to know as well.
Okay.
The increases for everybody.
Person
That
by
are in
person.
this
So
particular-
essentially, just like this spreadsheet is what we want, except we want what's their current and what's their proposed for
I'm a
fiscal year
little
'25.
surprised at the police chief. He usually does put increases in, and he certainly knows what the fire chief asked for. So
He didn't
are you
put it
kind of,
in.
I know, he didn't do any, are you guys getting kind of a, is this a?
He switched them
I
in
know,
positions.
I
and
know, but he didn't change
raised them
anybody's-
before, but not now.
Is this one of those
One of the things that the
passive
select board.
aggressive things?
Passive aggressive. One of the things that the select board has talked about is in terms of this last year, and this is just me, I felt I was being nickel and dimed. Every time we had a non-public, it was one of the particular departments coming, oh, my staff needs an increase, which is perfectly fine. But one of the things we said is we're dealing on one time only, and it's during this particular budget process. So if you think your staff needs an increase, you need to let us know and tell us what that is. So we're not going back, okay, well, we gave increases and now we get this, constant a group of people coming in. Well, my staff needs more money, my staff deal it at one time. So
That's why
what
I'm
kind of said.
surprised at the
That's
police
why she's
budget.
wondering.
That's why I'm wondering if there's, because.
Did they just get salary increases recently, by any chance? I mean, I think somebody
Well, they have
anecdotally
to.
mentioned that the
Some of
whole
them,
crew was
yes.
gonna leave,
Yeah.
so they've
They
probably
had to
gotten.
adjust,
Yeah,
and so that's what
Yeah.
he's probably thinking.
Yeah.
We just did that.
Right, so we're not gonna be
When
proposing.
things were
anything this year.
better for Dave and Eric's, one of the big things we did with the police department, we were trying to get 2 guys in a car all the time, 2 guys on, so we didn't have guys responding to calls singly. And we've just gotten to the point where we probably were staffed at the point where we didn't have guys out by
8 to
themselves.
9.
And now
and we got it all approved, and we got it all set, and we got all the
They've gone
people.
backwards now,
And
so
now
we've got guys out
he
there.
hasn't been able to keep that many people because of all the circumstances.
They've been poached.
Yeah, they've
And
been
so
poached.
it's, you've got guys out at 3
Quality
o'clock in the
people.
morning doing domestics by themselves.
Yeah. So,
Trying to call local, towns for,
I think mutual aid on the
Mutual
fire
aid,
side is better
assistance.
than it is on the police side.
well, they still cover me.
They
Well, I
still
know,
do.
but I mean, I think there's more response available. I don't mean that they don't do
Well,
it.
the
I
other
think
Not
thing
the
it's-
quality,
it's
the
not
availability.
It's availability, the fire departments.
See, the police department can call on area towns to help. They can also count on the state police to help, because Barracks A is right down in Epping.
I
The
know.
thing
And
is-
Tom is working
Tom's working a gazillion hours.
many hours, because.
And the thing is, if it's the domestic,
Got 'em all staffed
that's like
up.
the worst thing, because you don't know what to expect.
Oh, I know.
And the thing is,
They
you
killed
know,
that kid in Brentwood.
If you respond to a call and you think it's a domestic, you call for some backup, they're not gonna be there just like that.
No.
That's what happened to that officer in Brentwood a few years ago.
Yeah,
He didn't
so,
wait for the backup.
and it's
don't know what
dangerous,
people are-
and it's dangerous for our staff to go into a situation like that, because they don't know what they're up against.
So the staffing levels that we're at the moment are not anything that I would work under.
Because we lost one employee this last year, he went to Brentwood, which is, that's perfectly fine, that's his choice. And he's taken one of our officers who's about ready to leave with him. Because he said, oh, come down and work with me, and, they're offering him way more money. So, I don't regret those particular people doing that, because they're looking out for their best interest. It's unfortunate for us, but
So
that's
are
how it
there
is.
salary increases that you're gonna hear about the day after the budget gets approved?
I do not know, I do not know, I do not know.
Well, I think, something has to give.
Yeah.
The resources are not infinite, right? And so it's like, okay, chief, you need to give somebody a pay raise?
Yep.
Well, then you're not gonna get X, Y, Z. This is the budget that we've approved for you, this is your pool of money, you gotta work with what you got.
And that's what he has typically done in the past.
Yeah.
Even forgiven, getting the car
Yep.
that they needed that year or whatever, just to
Yeah.
make up for it and stuff.
He's definitely
He's
made
tried,
some,
he's definitely
They've
has
gotten
tried
very
to,
creative.
yeah, yeah.
tried to do that.
Well, one of the things that
And
gets,
getting a bunch of grants and.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, so he does a really good job.
So the person, you asked about the grant writing, I was gonna ask that same question, Pat, is that a person that exclusively works with the police, or
That's
can we get
his
this,
assistant.
can we
That's
get
his
this grant
assistant.
writer
That's his
for other
secretary.
areas
Yeah.
of the town too?
Is she
Right.
she's relatively new, she joined a couple
she's
of
got
years.
tons of experience, she came from Northampton.
Yeah, so she
won-
had done grant writing, because I
I
don't
do
believe
not
that.
know, I do not know, she's
Well, she
very
seems
late.
like she's got a good
Somebody's-
success rate.
Yeah, she moved here for a shorter commute, that was one of her things. But yeah, I don't know how long she was with Northampton, but years. So she's very experienced, and they work well together, so,
So they do it together,
but yeah.
yeah.
Chief Nemet's done some grant writing too, it's an art, but
It's time consuming.
yes. But the thing is, after you've done one, you've got all the materials to do another one and another one.
Well, that's true.
So, do we have any other questions?
So you're gonna put together that estimate of the tax rate before the next meeting? Will you have an opportunity to do that?
Yep. Well, I have all the forms from the state, so there's multiple columns. One column is what is the previous year that just closed, so I tie it to the tax rate that we just set. And then I put in these numbers here with the information I know in terms of what the proposed revenue is, and also what the state, county, and state education taxes are gonna be. Then it will calculate automatically what the town part is gonna be, and state education, and county and school.
It's just an estimate, but
It's just an estimate. And the thing is, that's for this particular group. Don't get up in the well, I can't control what you do, but don't get up in the deliberate session and say, oh, blah, 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 it's gonna be this. There's so many ifs in there, but it's a
it's a
calculated,
good benchmark for this group.
yeah.
What is the school district saying what is,
I wasn't at that particular meeting.
is he gone now?
No.
Morris isn't gone yet?
No, they're looking for a
And
replacement.
Brian is part of the person doing, Brian Cisneros he's got 27 phone calls to make for
They got,
Okay,
they're down to
candidate
3
references.
candidates, there's something that came out.
Yeah, I saw
There's
that
3
in the
candidates.
paper. So what do they, did he give you a number for next year?
I don't know, I wasn't at that particular meeting, so
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna have to ask Andy if he's provided. If not, the last time I knew, because we hadn't set our tax rate yet, and they can't do their tax rate or their rate until they find out what ours is and Madbury's and Durham's. So Andy probably should know. If not, we can call over and ask, because he will know that number by now, because we already set ours two weeks ago, so.
But I mean for next year, for your planning
Yes,
purposes.
yes, he will
Okay.
know. He'll have a good idea in terms of what that is. It's usually, he's not gonna say it's gonna be, 18 million or whatever it is, 24 million, 26, whatever it is. He's gonna say, it looks like 2.3% or something like that. And that's the number I use.
Yeah. How about the county and the state? What do you-
County, I think we have something from the county. State is usually about the same. I will ask Andy.
Same as what?
It was currently.
Okay.
I don't know. I'll ask him if he knows, but I don't have any information on all those, so I have to ask. So, and sometimes they're educated guesses, and sometimes they're like, ooh. The thing that I don't have that I have to get from Karen is the amount of extra assessment that we got this year. Or she's anticipating for this year. It's usually 5-6 million, something like that. I'm not sure though, we'll have to see. She's got Starbucks coming online. I don't know if there's too much house building, so I don't think that's gonna affect it, but Starbucks is the biggest thing, I would think.
Anything else in that plaza?
You're going to get, the big problem has been in that plaza is getting water, and Durham did the
They
water.
did that now, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
so you're gonna get, at some point, you're gonna get some kind of restaurant behind the Rusty Lantern, that whole complex, so it's like a little strip mall.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be like a 99 or something like that, it's gonna be something that's smaller. 99 has looked at that, Cracker Barrel's looked at it, but there's not enough traffic. And I'm like, not enough traffic on the intersection 125 Route 4?
Going up north every, yeah.
So, but it'll be something out there, and there'll be other little shops in there, so. But it's been, you can't have a restaurant there without some kind of good water supply. So that's what they've been waiting for.
My
I personally am glad it's not a Cracker Barrel.
Yeah.
I could do without Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, that's
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A,
There's one
yeah.
of those coming, I think it's Dover or Portsmouth.
no,
Chick-fil-A Portsmouth.
Portsmouth is
Portsmouth?
going in with a Chick-fil-A. I heard that it's gonna have 4 drive-through lanes.
Four? Now,
Yes.
where's it gonna be?
It's gonna be over by the mall,
Isn't
Fox
that
Run. You remember there was like an
popular?
old Asian Chinese
Yeah.
restaurant that was there?
Oh,
that has
Okay,
gone-
they've leveled it,
they've
okay,
leveled
that
it.
started out as a,
Yes.
Red Lobster. That
Oh,
was-
really?
it was
Red
Red
Lobster.
Lobster,
Yeah,
Red
that's
Lobster.
right, that's right.
Yeah.
Now, when are they gonna build, because we were by there the other day and they haven't even.
Well, so I was over there, it looks like they've done a lot of like paving and have laid down the concrete for the sidewalks and things like that, so it looks like progress is being made.
Oh,
But I've got a
okay.
friend who works for the power
So,
company who is
is-
involved in the like construction process that told us
Chick-fil-A
that.
that popular?
Oh, it's
Oh, it's-
delicious.
Really?
Not open on Sundays.
Yeah, that's true.
The other thing to look at, which we just got, or we're going to get, an additional highway grant of 38,000. He's put in 300,000 for paving. It might be another thing to look at in terms of, if you're looking to cut stuff.
We always cut Porter
Yeah,
Steve's
cut his-
paving.
I know, I feel bad for Steve.
Yeah. It's like,
Well, the
okay,
prices
put it
have to
back
be better this
another
year
year.
than they were, because I said I missed his
Well-
presentation, so.
Asphalt should be down. The other stuff I'm not so sure about. Salt has gone up tremendously. That's the only other thing that I was looking at.
Yeah, because his request has gone up by $100,000 for paving and
Yeah.
asphalt.
Yep. Oh, the other thing I was asking about, so I wasn't here for some of these, so I know the Heritage Commission didn't ask for any money. 250 has asked for $5,000, that's not on here.
Who? Oh, the
The
250.
250th Nation, yeah.
5,000, I thought I just saw that.
No, I didn't.
It'd be under patriotic, something at the back.
No, that's the banners and stuff like that. And then the Ag Commission didn't ask for anything?
No, they never even came in.
Okay, and because, okay, they never, well, that doesn't mean they didn't want something, but, Okay.
You can, Stacy, you can check on the Ag Commission, just double check that they didn't want anything. He didn't come in, I didn't,
Conference.
Good, Eric.
yeah.
Conservation is here, that's good. Well, if anything, our bonds are paid off, so that's good. Oh, that's the other thing, and you probably already heard about it anyways. We have a meeting with Carino on Monday night. They're gonna start, well, they've already started the process in terms of developing costs for a new office building to replace what we've got,
Here,
yeah,
what property?
town center. That's where we're looking at the moment. So that's most likely gonna be, will be a warrant article. Bonding part of it, using some of our trust funds for the remaining amount. So that process, we've hired them. The first presentation is Monday. And then supposedly, we're supposed to have something for the deliberative session, do a presentation. So, and then the bond hearing, or the bond notification is in the first part of January, so we have to have something for that, so.
So town center,
Yeah.
like
For that.
where the parish house is, where, like, where?
It's right on your property, next to, no, I'm just kidding. No.
I wish I had enough property.
Put them in your basement.
Yeah, put it in your basement. You have people coming in and out all the time. No, so if you look at a town center, you got the library, you got the old town hall, you got the annex.
Yeah.
And you got the historical society building. So it's gonna be behind those, but, you know, like in between that and the parish house. Yeah,
In there, parish house.
yeah, so it'll be
So
behind
there's
them.
enough space there.
Yep, yep, but not, it's gonna be back, you know, there's a cemetery in there, so it's gonna be in front of that.
Right.
So the idea is to, as Mass Road is here, Wednesday Hill comes in that weird intersection, it's gonna be directly across from there is the entrance.
Huh.
To the left of the annex?
To the left, well, if you're looking at the annex, it's gonna be on the right.
The annex, okay.
Yeah.
Further down.
To the
So
left of the parish
Yeah,
house.
so the proposal would be, the entrance would be there, town office building would be proposed, being put in, and then if that particular thing passes, if it doesn't pass, I've kind of like given up. But if it passes, the next stage would be the renovation of the town hall for office, for a meeting space, and fixing all the septic issues that are in that particular location.
One of the discussions we had at CIP the other night was how much of the site work needs to be done for
For-
that building alone,
For the
for the new
Town.
building.
For the new building, well, Karina will tell us how much that is. We're not going to, the proposal is, that building kind of like sits by itself.
The
And
new
then
building.
the phase two, if it goes forward, will be the library, the annex, historical society building, and the old town hall.
But the question we had specifically the other night was, because there's an item on the financial planning tool that references phase one of the site work.
That's,
And I was wondering if that phase one and what Carino's going to do were the same thing, because it's a pretty big
Yeah.
number.
well, they're gonna give us what they think the numbers be, so. It's not, it's gonna be like a standalone thing. The only thing that we might do, I'm not running the meeting, so I can't
No,
recognize
I'm not
you.
talking. I have a comment about your actual business, not this.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Okay. The fire chief pointed out that an advantage in keeping people was work environment, specifically private bunk rooms. Since we already had the space, private bunk rooms were very cheap. And yet, it's important to the employees. Is there anything like that for other departments? Because sometimes there are things that it really doesn't cost the employer very much, but it's really something that the employees appreciate. And in some cases, like bunk rooms, every time they're here, they appreciate it. And they recognize every time they're here that if they go to that other town, yeah, they'll make more money, but they're gonna be in a bunk room with 6 guys.
that's snore.
It's snore. So
Little things
he
like
pointed
that.
out that that's cheap, but it helps keep people here.
That's a good point.
So I was just thinking, we should be asking, are there other things things like that for other departments, police or whatever? I have no idea, I don't know.
One of the things the police department and the fire department has too is the exercise room. Some places don't have that.
Maybe we can send out a town-wide employee survey asking
Well,
some of
ask-
these. I mean,
Yeah,
it
ask
doesn't hurt to
department
ask.
heads.
It doesn't
Is-
hurt.
Are there other things other than
That's the
salary
department heads,
that we could be
yeah.
providing?
Yeah.
I have no idea, but.
Well, one of the things that I hear from the police chief all the time is the employees appreciate health insurance, which you've already heard.
Mhm.
They appreciate that the equipment that they get to use is much better than some other departments. So they appreciate those particular things. In the exercise room, they come in, they do their exercises, and then they can go on shift, or they can do it after their shift or whatever. But they appreciate those particular things. And yeah, they don't cost us very much money, it's not salary based, but, you know. So in terms of the fire department, I don't know if the chief's ever said, you know, our employees appreciate, you know, any of those particular things. I suspect they do, but I never had that conversation with them, or he hasn't had that conversation with them.
It's just worth asking the department heads. Are there other things like that?
Yeah.
And the other thing, we talked about it a little bit in terms of, you know, transition planning. That's gonna happen in the Public Works Department at some point. Warren and Pete are getting to the age, I'm not saying they're ready to retire,
We
but.
keep saying this
we have
every
to
We
plan
say
it.
this every year.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've talked to them about is because, what's his name? I'm spacing on his name.
What department?
Highway, the new guy.
Steve?
No.
Ben?
Ben, I was spacing on his
Yeah.
name. Ben is, they're trying to have him take over some of Pete's stuff in terms of doing maintenance
Oh,
and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
But Pete has so much knowledge, I don't know if he can ever transfer all of his knowledge, but they're gonna need somebody to take over that particular role at some point when Pete says, hey,
Yeah, you
I've
can
had enough.
start just teaching him.
So, but those two at some point,
He's a good guy, hopefully he does.
but, you know, we're getting to a point where the older people are gonna say, hey, I've had enough, it's my turn to retire, so.
Warren and Pete.
All right, everyone, we are about at 8 o'clock.
Yes.
I'd like to adjourn.
Second?
All right, motion approved, meeting adjourned. Thank you all for joining today.
Thank you.
And Stacy, when you get those answers, can you just forward them all to us?